Imagine you're on a gig and the drummer turns to you and says, add some fills. How would that make you feel? If you said worried, panicked, or like you wanted to just play it safe and stick with root notes, then there's something you need to learn. It's not more theory or some bizarre 10-hour practice routine. It's a simple way to add fills and go beyond root notes without freezing up or ruining the song. This exact system was used on an album for Grammy Award winner PJ Morton to create fills like this. And in a minute I'll show you that exact system, but first we have to start with step 1, without which you'll never actually stay calm enough to do any of that. So how do you stay calm when you play fills? Well, think of it like this. This is a game of Chinese chess. Now, you may not know how to play, but imagine you tried learning not by reading the rules, but simply by collecting more and more pieces to play with. When you sat down for your first game, you'd be terrified because you would have all these important pieces, but no idea how to actually use them. Now, you may not realize it, but this perfectly sums up why you freeze when you play fills, why you're worried about ruining the song by playing one wrong note, and why you ultimately play it safe and just stick to root notes. It's something I go deeper into in my 30 days to gig level bass playing email series. That's linked below and it's free, so go grab that. But here's what's really going on. When you learn how to add fills or embellish a bass line, you get told to learn your scales, learn your theory, and learn some neck shapes. In other words, you get told to gather pieces of information. Now, this isn't wrong, but just like the Chinese chess example, having more information doesn't tell you anything about how to actually use it. And this explains two things. One, this is why you freeze up or panic when you go for a fill. You think that having more information about scales and theory will help, but it's actually not the source of the problem. And two, because you've frozen once already, this plays on your mind the next time you go for a fill, which is why you decide to play it safe and stick with root notes in the future. The problem isn't that you're lacking knowledge of scales, shapes, or theory. What you're lacking is a practical system for how to actually use all that stuff in these moments on stage. But the good news is, once you have that, adding fills, being more creative, taking risks, and staying calm once you do all of that becomes 10 times easier. So that is exactly what we're going to look at next. So we are going to do this in two parts. In a moment, I'll show you how to stay calm when you add fills, but first you need to know how to actually add a fill without ruining the foundation of a song. And this is what we'll look at next by studying a really simple system that was used perfectly on an album for Grammy Award winner PJ Morton. So Built for Love is a song we're going to study, but we're actually not going to focus on finding the right notes or choosing the right scales. As you'll see later on, in the grand scheme of things, that's actually not that important. For now, what I do want you to do is to think about improvising a fill as being like baking a cake. Baking a cake is a process that you can broadly split into two halves. There's the preparation and then there's the baking or the execution. Now, the execution is the most exciting bit because you get to see a finished cake, it comes out of the oven and it smells amazing. So you might think that this is the most important part. But if you get the preparation wrong, or even worse, skip it altogether, you don't end up with a finished cake. What you get is actually a complete mess. And it's this two-stage idea of preparation and execution that this line uses so well. So the bass on the record was played by Brian Cockerham, and if you look at what he plays in the opening verse and chorus, you can see that he plays pretty simply.
Baby girl, I know I haven't been perfect for you, but before you say we're through, I think you should think a little while. 'Cause this is just a bump in the road. We'll get over this, just like the last one that we did. And now we're closer because of it. Oh.
Brian mostly just plays root notes and a few approach notes, what you might think of as very safe bass playing. But what's actually happening under the surface is Brian is taking this line through a vital preparation stage. He knows he's going to open up and add fills later, and for any of those fills to sound good and land with the listeners, he first needs to build a foundation with them by teaching them what a normal verse actually sounds like. If he doesn't, the fills he adds later on will sound random. They might end up putting his bandmates off, and like a badly prepared cake, they'll end up being a bit of a mess. But once this preparation phase is over, he steps forward at the start of the second verse and plays this. And it sounds amazing. But the reason isn't the notes, they're actually pretty conservative. Over the E7 chord, he's playing a double stop, which is the G sharp and D, so the third and flat seventh of that chord. The reason this fill sounds so good is because it's actually built on solid preparation. Because the audience already knows what a normal version of this verse chord progression sounds like, the fill sounds like a variation of what Brian's already played. It sounds like it's really connected to the song, it sounds like it's grown out of it organically. If he played the fill right at the top of the song at the first chance that he got, it actually ruins the music. Even though the notes would be completely the same, it sounds like way too much at this point in the song because it hasn't been prepared. So if you want to add fills like this that really serve the song when you play live, here's the system you need to use. Use the first verse and chorus to take your listeners through this preparation phase by playing the normal bass line, playing root notes, and just keeping it safe. Then once you've done this, in the second verse onwards, this foundation you've built means you can open up and add some fills. And as we've seen in this example, simple note choices really go a long way. That is how you can add fills without risking the foundation of a song. However, there's still one really huge problem with this. What about your nerves? Preparing a song and an audience like this is great, but doesn't it also put a lot of pressure on your shoulders to nail a fill at one exact moment? What if you mess it up? Won't that risk all the hard work that you've put in up to this point? Well, here's the beauty of this system. It actually deals with your nerves too. Here's how. If you bake a perfectly prepared cake for a little bit too long, it might be a little overdone. But when you eat it, have you ever noticed how it still basically tastes fine? The reason is, if you've done a good job enough with your prep, the cake can actually withstand a few mistakes. The same is true with bass fills. The reason Brian's preparation phase is so important isn't just that it buys him the license to play fills in the second verse. It's that in the first verse, it allows him to secure the foundation of the song. But here's the thing I want you to take away from all of this. If you get that phase right, then the foundation of the song becomes strong enough to withstand a few mistakes. This really takes the pressure off you to nail these fills that you want to add, because even if they do go wrong, it won't matter as much. However, now you've got a new problem. Learning how to step forward and play fills is great, but if you're a bass player who wants to play in bands, that's only half the job. Everything you've just learnt will count for nothing if you don't now also learn how to step back and properly anchor a band and a rhythm section. Luckily, there's a really simple system you can learn that will show you how to do exactly this, and I've broken it down step by step in this next video. So click up here to watch that next.